I've been using the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra for about 2 months now, and there's a lot that I like about it. But has Samsung done enough for me to keep this as my daily driver? Let's find out. Now, initially, I want to start off by talking about the design. There do seem to be quite a few mixed opinions. Some people love it, some people absolutely hate it. Me personally, I think the design is familiar, but it's a nice refresh and I do like it. If we look at the S22 Ultra, the S23 Ultra, and even the S24 Ultra, they pretty much look exactly the same. And yes, we've still got the triple ring design, but this is a nice refresh with the flat sides and the rounded corners. Now, sure, it might not have that same Note DNA, and although this device is lighter and thinner compared to the previous generations, it doesn't feel as thin because the sides are flat and not curved. But the lighter weight and the rounded corners do make it overall more comfortable, I would say. And because we have titanium with Gorilla Glass Victus 2 on the back, this does feel very premium. I like the matte finish. This is the titanium silver blue. It is also available in a titanium white silver, a titanium gray, as well as a titanium black. Yes, Samsung called all of their colors titanium. My titanium silver blue unit is actually quite nice. It's got a bit of a two-tone finish. But personally, if I was to buy one, I would go for one of the exclusive colors available from Samsung.com. I think they just stand out more amongst the others. We've got a titanium pink gold, jade green, as well as my favorite, a jet black. Now, if you are interested in getting one of those colors, you can check out my affiliate link down in the description below. This is also going to give you some exclusive discounts, which you're not going to find everywhere else. Now, although we have titanium, Samsung haven't disclosed what grade of titanium we have. I'm not sure that's going to matter because I'm sure most people do use their smartphone in a case like I do. And generally speaking, it's been pretty durable. I have dropped this a few times, but if you've got it in a case, you're not going to have to worry about it. If you want to know exactly how good this is with drop test, then you can check out Phone Bus drop test, which I think is the most accurate. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but it did do pretty well. Now, one area where Samsung is behind a lot of the competition is when it comes to the IP rating. We've got IP68, which is fine for your day-to-day, but Samsung devices have had an IP68 rating for many, many years now. Most of the competition now also offer IP69 ratings. This basically means that they will be able to endure high pressure water jets. So if you're going to be putting your device under the tap, for example, then you're not going to have to worry about that. This is something that's not here on the S25 Ultra, and it's something that I would have liked. But one area where Samsung is ahead of the competition is when it comes to the display. So the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra had my favorite display of 2024. The S25 Ultra just extends on that. And that's thanks to Gorilla Armor. Now, yes, there are lots of other great displays on other smartphones, but Gorilla Armor on the S25 Ultra makes this unique, and that's because it is anti-reflective. You can put this up against pretty much any other smartphone out there, and just because of its anti-reflectiveness, it makes it look so much better. Now, because we've got Gorilla Armor 2, it does mean that it's more resistant to fractures, and it's also going to be less likely to get damaged. Once again, this is not something that I've tested. You can check out Phone Bus drop test. Now, one thing about Gorilla Armor that you do have to consider is that if you're going to be using a regular screen protector, then you will lose that anti-reflectiveness, and that's because you're putting a layer of glass in front of it. So you can see here on this side-by-side example that you do lose those anti-reflective properties of Gorilla Armor 2 if you have a screen protector on. Something to keep in mind. Another thing to also keep in mind if you are going to be using a screen protector is the ultrasonic in-display fingerprint scanner. Now, this works great. Yes, it hasn't really changed over the past few years, but it's not really had to. Now, generally, my advice is if you're using a screen protector, then register the same fingerprint multiple times, and that will make it a lot more accurate. Apart from that, we do have smaller bezels compared to last year, so we get a slightly larger 6.9-inch display in relatively the same form factor, and Samsung make some of the best displays out there as always. So we've got dynamic AMOLED 2X technology, 1 to 120 Hz for the adaptive refresh rate. It's also very bright, 2600 nits for the outdoor peak brightness. So overall, this is a beautiful display and one of the best that you're going to find out there. Quick reminder, if you're enjoying this video so far and you want to see more like it, then do consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon. Now, one thing I want to talk about straight away is the S Pen, because this has been very controversial. So you may or may not know that the S Pen no longer has Bluetooth functionality, which means you can't use it for air actions, remotely controlling the smartphone with the S Pen, whether it's to trigger the camera or switch between slides or things like that. Now, personally, I love the S Pen. I use it quite a lot, maybe not every day, but at least a couple of times a week. The question really for me was, how much am I going to miss air commands on the S Pen coming from the S24 Ultra? The answer of that is not too much. Now, according to Samsung, only 1% of users actually used the S Pen remotely, which is why they removed it. I mean, I'm sure there are other reasons for that too. But for me, in the past 2 months, there has only been one occasion where I was hoping for the S Pen to work remotely. I was with a bunch of friends and we were going to take a picture. The S25 Ultra was on a tripod. Now, I do have the Galaxy Ring and you can just tap your finger twice like this to trigger the camera, but it's just not the same. You don't get that feedback like you do with here, using a physical button, knowing that you've pressed it. I did this a few times, and because it's also not on my index finger, it just didn't seem to work a few times. If I had the S Pen with that trigger, it would have made things so much easier. Is it a deal breaker? Not for me. Again, there was just one occasion where I needed that in the past 2 months. Now, there is also a little bit of a controversy because of Zach's teardown, where it looked like there is the charging mechanism within the smartphone. Others are saying that this is just there to let the phone know if the S Pen is in or not. I don't know about this. I think if Samsung did include that and were going to sell us a Bluetooth S Pen later on, that would not go down very well. So I don't think at this point in time that they're going to be doing that. Right now, let's talk about the cameras. So the S25 Ultra has some amazing all-round cameras. I've taken hundreds, if not thousands, of photos and videos with this over the past couple of months. And the results are very consistent. The selfie camera, you've got great detail, excellent dynamic range with amazing portraits as well. I find that not many other reviewers cover the selfie camera. If you're looking for a good selfie camera, the S25 Ultra has one. And for the rear-facing cameras, the hardware hasn't changed too much. So the primary camera is still 200 megapixels. We've got a 10 megapixel 3x telephoto camera, as well as a 50 megapixel periscope zoom camera. The new sensor that we've got is a 50 megapixel ultra wide camera. Now, this gives you more detail compared to the S24 Ultra. However, you do lose dynamic range when you are shooting at the full 50 megapixels. At 12 megapixels, it's absolutely fine. But I think one of the main things that that 50 megapixel camera brings is the ability to shoot 8K video from now the ultra wide camera, the primary camera, as well as the 5x telephoto camera. I believe that makes the S25 Ultra the most complete camera for 8K video. The fact that you can record from these multiple angles, which you can't do on many other devices as far as I'm aware. And the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra is still one of the best smartphones out there for extended zoom. I think the one area which really impressed me overall is video on the S25 Ultra, where I think we've got some really good improvements. We've got better dynamic range, you can shoot with HDR, and you can now also shoot with log video. So this is a flat picture profile, which will allow you lots of flexibility to edit in post. Now, I have done a detailed SuperSaf style camera comparison of the S25 Ultra versus the iPhone 16 Pro Max. I'll link that video down in the description so you can check that out. But honestly speaking, the S25 Ultra goes head to head even with the iPhone 16 Pro Max when it comes to video. It does very, very well, and it's easily the best Android smartphone for video. Now, granted, there is a lot more competition on the Android side now, and there are other smartphones like the Vivo X200 Pro as well as the Xiaomi 15 Ultra, which may give you better primary camera photos. But when we're looking at the all-round package, we're looking at all the different cameras, we're looking at photos, videos, selfie camera, I think the S25 Ultra on the Android side of things is still the best all-rounder in my opinion. Now let's talk about performance, because the S25 Ultra is one of the fastest smartphones out there right now. We've got the Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy, which means it's got a slightly higher clock speed compared to lots of the competition. This is an amazing chipset. It's super fast, and it can pretty much handle anything that you throw at it. It's also great for gaming. Now, the question, I guess, is how much are you going to notice these performance improvements on this compared to something like the S24 Ultra? Well, realistically speaking, not so much. Yes, the S25 Ultra scores higher in benchmarks. Yes, it's going to maintain lower temperatures and they're going to give you slightly higher frame rates compared to the S24 Ultra. But right now at this point, I don't think there is really anything out there that fully utilizes the 8 Elite. On the iPhone, we have console level games, and I think this really utilizes the performance of the A18 Pro, for example. On Android, right now, we don't have console level games. And this is something that I think would have really helped utilize the S25 Ultra's performance. But nevertheless, having that chip will mean that the S25 Ultra should last you a long while. Another advantage of the 8 Elite is when it comes to efficiency. The S25 Ultra has excellent battery life. It lasts all day long. And that is thanks to the 8 Elite because we have the same size battery as the S24 Ultra. Now, realistically speaking, even though the battery life is good on the S25 Ultra, there are other devices out there, such as the OnePlus 13, the Honor Magic 7 Pro, which all have better battery life. Now, that is partly because these devices use new silicon carbon technology, which means they can fit bigger batteries into smaller footprints. And this is something that I would have liked to have seen on the S25 Ultra. If they had a silicon carbon battery, they might have been able to maintain the same battery size and life, but made the device thinner. I think Samsung are maybe saving that for the S25 Edge. But also charging speeds. We've had the same charging speeds on the Galaxy S series for the past few years, and it really hasn't improved. We've got up to 45 watts, which isn't bad. I mean, you can get 50% in around 20 minutes, but just look at the competition. We've got 100, 150, 200 watts. I actually don't know how many watts it goes up to because it goes pretty crazy. But this is something that I think Samsung definitely should have improved, given us faster charging, because we've got lots of other options out there. Even wireless charging, it's still just 15 watts. Now, granted, the battery life is good, and I generally just leave this on my wireless charger before I'm about to go to sleep. I wake up to it fully charged, and it's absolutely fine. But still, there are lots of other devices out there with faster charging. There are also no magnets within the S25 Ultra, which means you can't use MagSafe by default. You're gonna have to get a case with magnets to be able to use MagSafe accessories. Now, sure, you can pick one up pretty cheap. I've got one here from Spen. They're not sponsoring this video, but I just do like their cases. And this will allow you to use MagSafe charges and accessories, but I would have liked to have had this built in. I wouldn't mind a few extra grams of weight, but then at least I don't have to rely on a case for that MagSafe functionality. So yeah, although the battery life and charging is fine on the S25 Ultra, it is not up to the competition. One area where Samsung is ahead of the competition is when it comes to software. So we've got Android 15 with One UI 7, and Samsung has promised 7 generations of Android OS updates with 7 years of security updates. That is in line with Google. I think the only other manufacturer right now that's also going to be offering that is Honor. And I personally really like One UI. I think it's one of the best Android skins out there. It's clean, it's simple. I might not use everything like this now brief. I just don't find it useful. It just says, have a good day, shows me the weather, a few things, not something that I find myself using. One little thing that I do find quite frustrating with One UI are some of the defaults. For instance, we still have buttons for navigation at the bottom as a default when you set up your smartphone. This should be gestures. I mean, we've had gestures on Android forever. And I also don't think Samsung utilizes the screens that we have on these devices fully with One UI because by default, you have 4 columns. And I'm like, you have so much space. Make use of that space at Samsung. Have it as 5x6 by default. Now, granted, you can easily change this. If you do want to change the icons, this is something that I would definitely recommend. Just tap and hold on the home screen, go into settings, and then you can do the home screen grid to 5x6. And you can also very easily change the navigation to swipe gestures in the settings too. But we do have, in my opinion, the most complete AI package on any smartphone out there with Galaxy AI. So right now, it seems like pretty much every manufacturer is trying to force AI down everybody's throats. But I think Samsung is the one that's doing it best at this point in time. We've got Gemini built in, which is miles ahead of Siri right now. But Gemini is also available on many other Android devices too. So what makes this unique? Well, the first thing is that we do have Bixby as well as Gemini. Now, this can be useful, but it can also make things overcomplicated. So, for instance, with Gemini, I can't do this. Switch off the always on display.
Sorry, I can't turn on always on display yet.
Now, this is something that Bixby can do, but then I have to open Bixby to ask it to do that. Now, to me, this doesn't make any sense and makes things even more confusing. I'm not going to keep using Bixby when I want to do some things and use Gemini when I want to do others. Samsung has been working very closely with Google on the S25 Ultra, so I really don't see why they couldn't have just had a feature where if I'm asking Gemini something which it can't do, then if it knows that Bixby can do it, then let Bixby do that bit. I should not have to know as a user what's doing what. I just need to press that button and let it do its thing. But that aside, we've got a full suite of Galaxy AI features. Now, I'm not going to cover every single one of these in detail. I have done that in previous videos. I'm going to highlight a few of the features that I have used the most and others which I haven't used at all. So let's start off with Live Translate. This is something that a lot of people were talking about with the launch of the S24 Ultra. I mean, it works great and it's definitely quite useful in very particular situations. I haven't traveled over the past couple of months, so there hasn't been a single situation where I would have had to use Live Translate or Interpreter. And I think that's going to be the case for most people. As far as I know, most people generally travel once or twice a year. So yes, that feature's nice to have when you might need to use it, but you're not going to be using it every day. One feature that I have found myself using every day is the browsing assist. Being able to summarize web pages. Honestly, this is so good, especially if you're in Europe and you always get this really annoying cookies pop up every time you go onto a website. And on many websites, you can't even reject all of them. You have to go through each and every single one. Super annoying. What I simply do is just press the button at the bottom, summarize, and I have a summary of the page without actually having to accept or reject cookies. I can just have a summary right there. Nice and easy. I absolutely love it. Now, there is the read aloud feature, which I haven't found myself using too much. But another area where I think Samsung is ahead of the competition is when it comes to AI photo editing. Now, a lot of you guys may have seen the trend where people cover half their face and get Galaxy AI to fill in the rest of it. Honestly, this works and it's crazy how well it works. I also really like sketch to image, which is a lot of fun. You can just doodle whatever you want on actual photos and it makes them into absolute masterpieces. Now, here's the thing with Galaxy AI features. As far as we know, these are only going to be free up until the end of 2025. What happens after that? Nobody knows. And I guess the question is, how much would you be willing to pay for these Galaxy AI features if there was a charge for them, say a monthly subscription or something like that? For me, the answer is zero. I personally would not pay additional for these features. Yes, they're nice, but I don't use them every single day. So I personally wouldn't be willing to pay a monthly fee for these Galaxy features. Samsung might just be waiting to see what everybody else does, but this will be interesting to see what happens after that date. Now, for the speakers sound amazing on the S25 Ultra. They are louder and clearer compared to the S24 Ultra, which was already very good. If you want to see a detailed speaker test, my buddy Thunder E from Board at Work has done a detailed video. I'll leave that video linked down in the description. Connectivity on the S25 Ultra is also great. We've got Wi-Fi 7, ultra-wideband technology, Bluetooth 5.4. Now, there is apparently some emergency SOS via satellite, but it's limited to particular networks. I have not had it available here on my device. And that brings me on to the price. So the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra is priced the same as what the S24 Ultra started at last year. So that's $1,300 in the US or £1,250 in the UK. Is that worth your money? And am I going to carry on using this as my daily driver? Well, in isolation, it might not seem like the best deal, but remember, you have to take these prices with a grain of salt. And that's because the price you see is not always what you get, because Samsung pretty much always has some offers on their website. So right now in the UK, at this point in time, don't shout at me if you look at this video 3 months down the line and the same offers are not available. But in the UK right now, you can get double the storage, so 512 gigabytes to the price of 256. And in the US, although at this point in time, they're not offering double the storage, but I'm sure they will do at some point, you can get up to $900 in trade-in credit if you trade in the S24 Ultra from last year, for example. You can also get up to $300 in additional credit using my affiliate link down in the description below. Wink, wink. And when you consider a lot of these offers, then in my opinion, the S25 Ultra is definitely worth it. And I personally will carry on using it as my daily driver. Yes, there are other devices that do certain things better. For example, better battery life, better charging. Certain cameras might be better on other devices compared to the S25 Ultra. But in my opinion, the S25 Ultra does everything well. It's the jack of all trades, and it's a very safe device to go for, and it ticks pretty much all of the boxes for most people. That's what I think anyway. What do you guys think? Drop me a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. If you want to see how this compares to last year's S24 Ultra, I've covered that video in detail here. Or maybe you want to see how it compares to the iPhone 16 Pro Max, you can see that video here. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, then do smash that like button for me. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon if you want to see more videos like this. Thanks for watching. This is Saf on SuperSaf TV, and I'll see you next time.